I said, maybe in 10, 15 years time, I could make enough income to not have to work. Instead of retiring in 30 years, maybe I could retire in 10 years. So I put their units on Airbnb. And every single unit that I put on Airbnb, it was making 3 times rent in the summer. So I was like, okay, this is like a golden opportunity. I need to leave my job.
Hey, welcome to the Boostly podcast. This is the podcast that gives hosts the tools, the tactics, the training, most importantly, the confidence so you can go out there and get yourself direct bookings. My name's Liam Carolan, and today we're going behind the host. And this is going to be awesome because we're going to hear this person's story, how they scale to 300 units, their ups, their downs, and all the things that you as a host can learn from. We've got Syed from SyedBnb.com. You can go and check out his webpage and see what's on there. But I'm not going to take anything else away from him. I'm going to throw the mic open and say, welcome along.
Liam, I'm happy to be here. Looking forward to talking to you. I'll kick it off by just introducing myself. I'm Syed, and I have 300 units under management. I've been in business for 7 years now, and I have 75 resources in my business. And there's been a lot of ups and downs in my business, and I'm going to share my story and how I got started and how I got to where I'm at today. I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome. Awesome. I'm looking forward to diving in. Just before we go into that, whereabouts in the world are you?
I'm located in the Midwest in the United States in Chicago. So my
Nice,
home base
nice.
is.
Awesome. So from over here in the UK, we love to reach out all over the world. And it's great to have someone from the Midwest in the USA. So take it away. Tell me your story. How did you get started? And I'm really excited to share with
Yeah.
the audience how you got up to that many units. But take us all the way back to the start first.
Sure. So I initially got started in 2017. Is I was obsessed with bigger pockets at the time, and I would listen to all the podcasts in bigger pockets, and it would talk about getting out of the rat race. And I listened to the ebook for Rich Dad Poor Dad, and I was like super motivated, and I was like, hey, I want to replace my 9 to 5 income. I want to get out of the rat race. I want to do something for myself. So the way I thought I could make this happen is, you know, purchasing multifamily properties. So I said, maybe in 10, 15 years time, I could make enough income to not have to work. Instead of retiring in 30 years, maybe I could retire in 10 years. So after doing a lot of research, I was ready to, take action. And I ended up researching that, hey, I could house hack a property, live in one of the units, and rent out the other ones. So I did a low money down FHA financing. I got a 4 unit plus basement. I lived in the basement for a year. And then now it was time to move out, and it was furnished. It was nice. It was nicely done. And I listened to another podcast, and this guy was killing it on Airbnb. So I was like, okay, it's ready to go. Why not just, put it on? Let's see what happens. So I put it on in February. It was the first month. I broke even on my rent. Like what I was expecting for rent is what I made in my first month. But I knew it was February, and it's like, winter slow season. I'm like, okay, let's see what happens in spring break and all that. So coming March, I ended up making 2 times rent. And I was like, whoa, this is like something else. Like, this is amazing. And then come April, May, it ended up being 3 times rent. And then I was like, this is something that this is a once in a lifetime thing. I want to have more. How can I get more? So at the same time, it was like up for renewal for tenants in my building, and some of them moved out. So I put their units on Airbnb. And every single unit that I put on Airbnb, it was making 3 times rent in the summer. So I was like, okay, this is like a golden opportunity. I need to leave my job. I need to accelerate what my plan was 10, 15 years to now it's like 3, 4 months, and I need to do this full time now. So I ended up going to my manager at work, and I told her, like, listen, like, I'll give you my like 1 month notice. I'll give you 6 weeks. Like, you could replace my job, and I want to try this out full time.
You were pretty persistent. You didn't give up, whereas so many people would have just went, you know what, I've tried it once. They said no. I hate rejection. I'm not going to try again. So by keep going back and getting in front of that owner, and then even when you got in front of that owner, he still said no, but you figured out, well, what was his objection and how do I solve his objection? And it's what I'd call the foot in the door method, where you've got these two properties just to, it's a taster, right, before he gets the full meal, which is amazing. So yeah, what happened from there? So you got 35 units.
Yeah, so I had 35 units. Things were amazing. I was so happy that I, started off this business, and I'm, making cash flow. I'm making profit. I'm able to grow and scale the business without outside funding because my little trick that I've been doing was like that 2 months free upfront. So I thought like, okay, like this is pretty good. I'm at like 45 units now. Like what's next? So it ended up being where some of the deals that I did with this landlord was not in contract because we were adding some units so fast. Like initially we did leases and all that, and all of a sudden we're not doing contracts. And we're like, okay, we'll figure out the contract on the back end. We can't do the standard lease anymore. We need a commercial lease, and we need to have these terms. I'm like, okay, that's fine. We can figure that out. But I just wanted units, right? So I'm like, all right, just give me the units. I'll figure it out later.
He's just chucking
Um,
keys your
yeah,
way, and you're like, yeah, I'm
yeah, and
filling them.
at 2 months free up front is okay. Whatever. Like my money comes back anyway, fast. But it's an opportunity. So I ended up getting 35 units with them. And then finally, like the winter season started coming up, and I'm forecasting a bunch of loss, and I don't have a contract. And I'm like, wait, what if this landlord ends up saying something like, okay, I want these units back now. And after the winter, and I just did this all for no reason. So I started getting scared. So I'm like, okay, listen, like landlord, you have to let's do a contract now. And that was probably not a good thing to do a contract after you have the units. There was a lot of like negotiation, and it put like not a good like relationship between the landlord and I, and he stopped talking to me. We did the contract, but he stopped talking to me. So I'm like, okay, I need to branch out. Like, let's find other landlords just like him that have thousands of units, and let me name drop now. Let me say like, hey, I do business with this guy who is one of the biggest ones. Can I do business with you? He's your friend. He's your colleague. I pay him rent. There's no problems. So I started doing that pitch, and instead of like 6 months to finally get approval, and now it's like a month to get approval, from a landlord, because I have a reputation now, and I do business with somebody that they know. So the next landlord, I did the same thing, and I asked for 2 units, and then 4 units, 10, 15, 20, 30, with this landlord. And then I started going to the next landlord, and it said the same thing. I do business with landlord A, and I do business with landlord B. Can I do it with you? And the pitch just kept on getting easier and easier, and depending on the time of the year, because busy season for landlords are the summer, and then slow seasons of winter. So they're motivated at different times. So I would go to them at their like October, when there's going to be like vacant for the next couple months, and they would start giving me units, and I started scaling up my portfolio. The first 2018 is when I had that 40, 50 units. I had like $1.2 million worth of revenue, $200,000 profit. And then in 2020, I scaled up some more. I ended up having $3.2 million of revenue and maybe like $500,000 of profit. um Sorry, 2019, that was 2019. And then 2020, that winter, right before March, I said, okay, like winter time, let's scale up units. At the same time, I'm getting losses, and at the same time, I'm adding units. But I'm going for outside funding. I'm opening up like 10, 15 credit cards. They just kept on approving me for credit cards. I started taking some private loans out from my friends and family. So I'm like at 200, $300,000 of debt from like the from my loans I took out, and then another $200,000 loss from the big actual business. And I scale up maybe 60 units during the winter. And I'm like, okay, March 15th is spring break. I'm back in. I have no money right now, but I'm back in business. I'm gonna start making money again. And then like boom, like COVID comes, right? Flights
Dreaded
stop.
COVID.
Yeah, flights stop. Airbnb is refunding. Nobody knows what's going on with travel. And now I have a $500,000 rent payment coming up in a couple of weeks, and I had like $5,000 to my name. So I was like, whoa, like this is like I'm done. There's no coming back from this. It's like the band-aid got ripped off so fast. So it was like something that I didn't even were able to react, right?
What
It
what
just happened. So yeah.
what was that moment though like? Because I mean, I know that, do you know the funny thing is, now I speak to people, and there's people who started their business post COVID, and I'm like, you don't know what it was like, man. You weren't there. Like, as in, because COVID is one of those things which just it just completely wiped the floor with it's grounded us. Airbnb closed their doors, all sorts of issues, as we talk about at Boostly. But in that moment where it happened, what were the options? What was going? How did you feel, I guess, in that moment?
Yeah. So at the moment, I talked to my colleagues. Like I created my own like little professional group on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, there was like a bunch of guys doing like these like masterminds that would connect people with like skilled operators, and it would be a buy-in. And I'm like, wait, why do I need to pay to talk to people with my business? So I created my own Facebook group with some of the players that are still around today and some aren't, but I started talking to them. I'm like, okay, what are the repercussions? What are you thinking? What are you doing with your business? And we started having discussions. We started having meetings. We never met before. Like we started having phone calls. And then there were people that were very bearish on what was going to happen. They're like, this might be it. If you can get out of your leases, it's time to start talking to your landlords and seeing what you could do. Um, so, and then they would give examples of this operator getting rid of this amount of leases. So I was like, okay, I have this $500,000 rent coming up. Um, so let me, like, I felt like my business was done, just like how everyone else felt. There was no way coming back from it. But I'm like, okay, let me make a list. And in this list, I wrote down 10 things that I needed to happen to, continue my business. If I hit these 10 things, maybe I could survive. I'm not sure, maybe. And, one thing was I need to get an injection of cash. Where can I get cash from? At the same time, they started coming out with that EIDL loan for $150,000,
Mm-hmm.
which was huge for me. I took that 150 and I paid off my private loans to my friends and family. I didn't want that on my conscience. Like I took that much money and didn't give it back. Then there was PPP, but unfortunately for PPP, I had all contractors because all my cleaners were contractors and not W-2 employees. So I didn't get that much money, but like 30,000, it helped. I paid down some credit card. I refinanced my building. I had a building that I purchased and I had $120,000 I was able to pull out of it. So I took that 120,000 and paid down debt, credit card debt. So I didn't have this crazy 25% interest, that was from the injection of cash, that which I needed. So that happened.
How many
Next,
units were you on at the time at this stage where this was all
yeah,
tumbling down?
180 units at that time.
Jeez, yeah.
So the next thing is like, okay, I got to talk to landlords. So I had about 10 landlords, 180 units, and I gave them three options. Option one is let's get on a revenue share. Let's do 50-50 split, 60-40, whatever you guys want to do, back to the management type of agreement. And option two is allow me to pick up my stuff and leave and terminate the lease, or keep my stuff and just terminate the lease. But I'm not going to be able to pay you. And option three was like, if I stay in the unit, I'm not paying. You could sue me, you could bankrupt me, and you can do what you want. And out of those like 180 units, three of the landlords that had like 50 of those units ended up saying like, listen, we're not COVID charity. Uh, we're going to bankrupt you until you have nothing. You better pay us. Maybe 30, 40, 50 units ended up saying that just pick up your stuff. We don't want to touch you. Just get out of our units. And then the most important was there's two landlords that I had 90 units with that ended up saying that, okay, let's get on this revenue share. Let's see if we could survive this. We're partners in this versus like adversaries. Like you pay me, I collect. There's like, you were providing value. If you're going down, I'll take a little hit. But let's stay in business and let's figure it out. And if it doesn't work out, you just pick up your stuff. And eventually, those landlords that said that they wanted to sue me until I had nothing ended up realizing how bad COVID was going to be to the world and the economy. They ended up settling with me, like, 2 months rent or keeping their furniture or whatever the case is. Like they ended up settling with me. So now all of a sudden, I ended up removing 90 units from the market from my supply. And then now I have 90 units on revenue share. So now I'm in business still.
Jumping
And
on,
yeah.
just jumping on in there. How did you feel? So when you're talking to these landlords, I mean, there's some tough conversations, right, that you're having to have all day, every day at that stage. Like,
Yeah.
how, I guess, where did you pull the resilience from to do that?
Yeah. So it was just in me. Like my thing is like, if something is going bad, I just got to go right in front of that person and tell them like, hey, I see something bad happening, let's take action. And it caught some landlords off guard too. Like when I was starting to walk in people's offices again without meetings, without calling, without anything, and I'm like, listen, this is a big problem. Like I want to let you know, these 30 units that I have with you, I'm not going to be able to pay in a couple of weeks. What do you want to do? And then like the landlord, one landlord made a comment like, in all years of doing business, this 25 years of doing business, I've never had somebody walk in my office like this and tell me that they're not going to be able to do something. They're like, this is a problem, but it's good that you came to me, to tell me.
Looking at
And
people in the eye and being able to do
right,
that must go some way to help.
right. And I think that approach was the best approach. I started just walking people's offices and telling them like, and they appreciated the transparency. I provided them like certain type of like scenarios and situations. If we go through a revenue share, how much expense do I need to continue my business to pay my people? Because I'm like, all I need is be able to pay my people and pay my rent for my house, and I'll give you everything else. Like I'm not doing this to like make money. I'm now doing this to survive. And I told them like, listen, and like if it doesn't work out at any given time, 1 month, 2 weeks in, 3 weeks in, and if you could rent it out yourself, go rent it out yourself. I was giving them options. Like I'm not this person that is just gonna ignore you and not pay you and then hold on to your unit, because I think that was the worst thing a landlord can ever experience, is that, and they just don't want somebody to do something like malice against them. So that's one thing about me is like I'm able to just approach people about problems. That's just like my personality. I was never scared to do that, and if anything, I feel like they appreciate that when I'm able to like tell them about the future. Then that's why they like kept me along, because I would continuously talk to them about the 2-month outlook, the 3-month outlook, the next 6 months outlook, and then I would reflect back. I'm like, okay, this is actually what I predicted, and this is what happened. I was right about this. I was wrong about that. Let's see what happens in the next 2 months. So like they followed along the story. They believed in the story, and I think that's what they appreciated. But don't get me wrong, it was tough because like some landlords were like they didn't want to hear me. They didn't answer the phone call until like I started getting lawyers involved and having my lawyer reach out to each landlord had their own style, right?
Having a blast, gonna get it on the Bruce Lee podcast. Bruce Lee like Bruce Lee, cause it's so hard and the T is loose leaf. Making up those rhymes, don't write it, just do it loosely.